Hey, what's up, fam? We are back on the CEO Pulse podcast where you get the real, the raw, and the mind of entrepreneurship. We are sitting down today with Rondi Lambeth. He's America's credit expert, founder of the Fortress Financial Group. They specialize in credit repair, real estate investments, as well as strategies. And a lot of times we have as entrepreneurs, right, we'll have an idea of what the business model needs to look like, what we need to do to come in and hire, and then help the company grow, right? But what happens on the back end? What happens with Uncle Sam? There's a lot of questions that kind of pop up there, and I think it's very important to have a really good grip on what it takes to bring it all together. So we're gonna pick Rondi's brain on that and really get the golden nuggets out of this whole session here. Rondi, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you stopping by.
It's great to be here. It's great to be alive.
I know, right?
I'm a blessed man. Yes.
It's you have a very impressive background. I mean, you've been on you've had your own TV and radio show and been on ABC, CBS, and work with celebrities on tax strategies and all over the media with and it takes a certain type of expertise, right, to operate at those levels. So I'm very, very excited to have you on. But give us a little bit of background on you.
Yeah, I grew up not too far from where I'm sitting right now, outside of Boise, Idaho. I grew up extremely poor. I grew up in a shack. It literally was someone's shack. They donated to my family. Had no running water, no electricity.
Wow.
We got our food out of a dumpster. And half the year I spent my childhood in the mountains, living in a tent. So I grew up extremely poor. I grew up being taught that the government was out to get us. I was taught that rich people are evil and that money was the root of all evil and that education was worthless. And, I have very abusive parents, a stepdad that would beat us on a regular basis. So at age 15, I left home.
Man.
I left home and kind of just figured it out, met a few people along the way, went to work at a family-owned funeral home in John Day, Oregon, and started getting mentored by a very, very wealthy man that taught me that it doesn't matter how much money you make, it's how much money you keep, and you need to make your sport learning about taxes so you can save as much money as possible and then invest that money in either businesses and real estate. So at 15 years old, I went from money's the root of all evil,
right,
to we will make you free. Here's how you get it. So went from there, graduated high school, always had that desire to help people. And during high school, I wanted to become a pilot. So I joined the Army National Guards to start learning how to fly helicopters.
Wow.
And then got accepted to the fire academy and moved to Colorado in 1992 and become a fireman, to where I lived there for 22 years until I retired from the fire department.
So you retired from the fire department?
I did, yeah.
Wow.
And then
it's amazing.
I started during that time, as a firefighter, you work 6 days a month, really, once you have a little bit of vacation time. And instead of going to work and getting a job like a lot of the other firefighters, I started businesses and I ran very successful businesses. And towards the end of my fire department career, my little brother, who was 22 years old, was also a firefighter, started falling behind on his bills, started getting those collection calls and the credit issues, and ended up taking his life over the thing, shot and killed himself.
Yeah.
And so here I was, I was Superman is what I felt like, you're saving people's lives, working at the busiest rescue in Denver, where we'd save, on a given day, we could save 10 people's lives. And I felt pretty proud, I was doing that. And yet my own brother was struggling and I didn't even know. Yeah. And so at that point, I decided to start a financial education company. And that's where Fortress started. So in 2007, I created Fortress as a not-for-profit company to educate people on money and credit. And then the demand for it just blew up. And now it's a multi-million-dollar company that's helped hundreds of thousands of people. And it's no longer not-for-profit. But we do a lot of work for our communities, and we donate a lot of money to other organizations, including I have an orphanage in Dominican Republic where I have 32 kids at the orphanage that I fully 100% support. So that's a little bit about myself. I started really poor, and now I'm on the other side of that line, and I'm still trying to give back to people. And that's really my passion, is helping people with their credit, their money, their taxes, their debt, their investments, etc. So.
Wow, man. It's
hopefully that wasn't too long-winded.
No. It's good. I mean, you've been through a lot of hardship. There's a lot of things that we see at the fire department, right? I mean, as far as experiences and what I used to be a fireman as well.
Okay.
I didn't retire from it. I spent about 6 years in the fire department, fire service. So, I mean, you get exposed to a lot of stuff. You get exposed to a lot of ups and downs, and then see a newfound appreciation kind of for life. But you also see the hardships, and you going through that experience as a little kid. I mean, it had to instill some of that, appreciation for life, which it's really good that you got a mentor at an early age, 15, that kind of started steering you on the on the path of wealth. A lot of times I think what happens is that we don't get exposed to the potential, to the possibilities out there, and that remains, constrained to whatever our environment is, right? So yeah, I mean, it's incredible the amount of hardship and how you've been able to turn that on its head to do something great, like Fortress. So now you focus on financial education, and you have is it specifically geared towards entrepreneurs, or are you talking about regular W2 employees as well, or what do you guys mainly, what's your superpower as a company?
Yeah, our superpowers, we work with your average middle class blue collar people. Even my apartment complexes, I have over 2,500 doors, and we cater to the workforce housing, blue collar, middle America, people. And the credit repair, we help middle America, the people that need the help. But then on the other side, I'm the credit expert for the NBA. I'm in contract right now to be the credit expert for the NFL. So there's the other extreme, and then I got in with Hollywood, and I've helped a lot of celebrities, which, I can't say who they are, but there's a lot that I'm their secret weapon when it comes to fixing their finances, helping them with their taxes. And then I also help entrepreneurs with business credit. One of the memes that I absolutely hate seeing, and I saw it yesterday posted on social media, and it's we live in such a horrible society where an 18-year-old kid can get $100,000 in student loans, they can't get $100,000 in business credit, right? 100%. That's absolute 100% bullshit. Because there's not one place on a business credit loan application or a credit card that asks for your date of birth. It asks for your business date of birth, not you personally. So that, I help people every day with business credit and getting lines of credit and millions of dollars. The most I've ever helped someone was $50 million line of credit.
Wow. So
it's everybody between, your guy making $12 an hour to the guy making $12 million, and everything in between. Yeah. I think my wealthiest client I ever had was one of the founders of Oracle.
Wow.
And he had a 5,000 acre ranch in Montana, and his ranch hand got DirecTV in his name because it was his ranch. And then after years, quit, moved on, and canceled DirecTV, forgot to turn in the box. So they sent my client, one of the founders of Oracle, to collections. And this is a guy that, I've been in his house, and he's got pictures of golfing with Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
And other presidents. Very, very powerful man, but could not get this $500 collection removed. He's probably the wealthiest individual I've helped so far. And, it doesn't matter how much money you have when it comes to credit. The credit bureaus don't care.
Yeah.
So I can help anybody.
Wow, that's insane.
Anybody that wants to be helped, I should put it that way.
You really got to watch out for those cable TV boxes, man. They can get you.
Oh, yes, they can.
It happened. It happened. I mean, that exact scenario. I mean, I didn't have a 5,000-acre ranch at the time. I was living in an apartment, but I didn't turn in my box, and it was a Cox for Cox.
Yeah.
Services. And I turned in the box, and they haunted me down like 3 years after. It was a pain in the ass to get that thing off my record.
Yeah. And it can impact you. I have a client that's worth about $200 million in Utah.
Yeah.
And he was buying a $5 million house and couldn't get a loan because of the same thing, a little collection. So he ended up having to pay cash for it. And then, he called me, we fixed it, cleaned it up, and then he was able to do a refinance and cash out. But, he literally could not get a home loan because of this collection. He couldn't get a home loan at a decent interest rate. Mm-hmm. So he just said, screw it, I'll pay cash, and then I'll Rondi fix it. I cleaned it up in 30 days, and then he refinanced it. Yeah.
Yeah. Push it. And you do what you got to do. Right. So, so as far as building credit, I mean, what are the best practices, I guess? I mean, there's a lot of, I've had some advice, right. On, okay, you do this, you keep your debt at 30%, and then, the ins and outs. And I mean, I see you smirking right now. So it's tell me your thoughts on that. So for somebody who's perhaps, beginning their credit or trying to repair their stuff out there, what's some value that we can, some pragmatic steps that we can give them, so it can go through an understanding of what it's going to take?
Yeah. I'm going to address the 30 to 50% rule real quick, and then I'll get into some action items that you can do to have great credit for life. Okay. And when I've done these TV interviews, literally I have what's called the 311 rule. This is exactly what I do on a TV interview. The 30 to 50%, that whole wives' tale or myth was created by the banking industry, spread by real estate agents and mortgage brokers that just didn't know any better. 30 to 50% is absolutely terrible for your credit score. Wow. I saw it today. I had a realtor post on social media, tag me, should you keep your stuff at 30%? And everybody's posting all this stuff. And my response was, well, it depends on what you're looking for. Right. But if you're looking for the highest credit score, 30 to 50% is going to lower your credit score by 30 to 50 points.
Really?
Then it comes to utilization rate. Utilization rate is the amount owed compared to your credit limit. So if you have a $1,000 credit limit and you owed $300, that would be a 30% utilization rate. You would drop by 30 points. So every 10% you utilize, you essentially drop by 10 points.
Wow.
I've had people call me out on this, real estate agents, mortgage brokers, the people that heard from their brother-in-law, sister's cousin, down the street, neighbor. They'll say that's not true. Well, I'm a FICO certified credit pro. I can build FICO algorithms. I know how to build FICO credit scores. And I work as a credit expert witness in federal court when someone sues the credit bureaus or the bank. So when I say it's going to impact your credit score in a negative way, it's the facts, right? So if you want to have great credit, there's a couple things you need to do. Number one, you have to have credit cards, no exceptions. You must have at least 3 credit cards that are open and are used every single month. If you don't have at least 3 credit cards, you're not going to have great credit. You can have good credit. You can have a 720 credit score. That's not great, but it's good enough, right? It's good enough to get a house. But if you're 740 or higher, you start getting much better interest rates on a lot of things.
Right.
And so 740 is really the magic number. The higher it is, the better it is, because it gives you some leeway. If you max out a credit card 1 month because it's Christmas, it gives you that leeway or that buffer. So you must have at least 3 credit cards at all times. You must use each credit card every single month. And you don't want to spend more than 5% in each given month. But you have to spend at least $1. So between $1 and 5% utilization rate. So back to the $1,000 credit card, $50.
$50 on that credit card.
Anything above $50, your credit score is going to go down.
Really?
Anything over $50, you will have a decrease in your credit score.
Wow, that is crazy. I mean, that's really news to me. I don't know how common, knowledge that is, but I would have never thought that. 5%.
Yeah, it's not. There's less than a dozen of us FICO certified credit professionals left in America. There's literally less than a dozen of us. And so that information is not necessarily public information. It's privately held information that FICO taught us when they taught us how to create scorecards. And a scorecard is, there's over 4,000 different scorecards to each FICO version. So if you get a mortgage report, you're going to see 3 different FICO softwares. You're going to see FICO Model 2, which was developed in 1996. You're going to see FICO Model 4 and FICO Model 5. Most banks are using FICO Model 8. And FICO Model 10 is out there, but I don't know of anybody using it yet. And then inside those models are what's called scorecards. So for example, let's say that you have a collection that hits your credit. So like when that Cox cable hit you, you move from that current scorecard you're into a different scorecard. Think of it as a bell curve. So your average credit score, FICO credit score, is 300 to 850. That's the max you can get, 850. The lowest is going to be 300. That is FICO model scorecard number 1. Okay. Model number 2 might be 300 to 800. Model 3 might be 300 to 750. So if you're in the Model 1 or scorecard 1 and you have a collection show up, the highest credit score you could potentially have would be a 750. If you did everything perfect, you're a 750, not an 850, just because you moved to a different scorecard.
Wow.
And this is, why people think inquiries are so detrimental to your credit score. Inquiries have very, very little impact on your score, but they move you into different scorecards. And so instead of being able to get an 850, you're now capped at maybe 700. And then you got a collection now at 650. You do everything right. And the highest credit score you can have is 650 because you're in that bad boy scorecard. Wow. So you need to get out of those scorecards. And that's why moving certain things can do that. Now, when you max out that credit card, say you do 70, 80, 90%, or even 100% utilization, that's going to move you into a bad boy, risky scorecard, which then drops your credit score significantly.
What about that strategy where you, because I've heard it too, where people use the credit card and then just pay the whole thing off before the due date. Is that impact? Does that help? Is that detrimental? Well,
it depends on how much in advance that you pay it off. Okay, so let's say that $1,000 card.
Yeah.
Again, I'm talking a lot about credit cards because they're the number one thing on a credit report as far as scores. Credit cards are the number one thing to have. So that $1,000 card you bought and you max it out. Now you owe $1,000, but the due date's on the 15th of the month and you pay it off on the 14th.
Yeah.
The problem is the credit bureaus don't know it was paid off because the statement date is the day they report it to the credit bureaus, which is generally 14 days prior to the due date. So on the 1st of the month, they reported to the credit bureaus, you owed $1,000. And then on the 15th of the month, you paid it off. They don't report it on the 15th, they report it on the 1st. Then if you leave it paid off, the following month on the 1st, they will report the new balance at 0. The problem is you've used it again, potentially maxed it out for the points and rewards, which is fine, but it's going to show maxed out. And so this is why most entrepreneurs will get in trouble is they're like, yeah, I pay it off every month. Why is my credit score still 650? Well, you're paying it off on the due date, and the credit bureaus don't know. And because they don't know, FICO doesn't know. So if you're going to max out credit cards for the points, which, I do that, and I think it's a great program, a great benefit of a credit card. You want to pay it off by the statement date. So if you look at your statement, it will say, December 9th through January 10th, and it ended on January 10th. That's the day they reported it to the bureaus, or the following day, the day after that statement date. You need to have it paid in full by that statement date. And it's generally always the same every month. So when you go and you set up your automatic payments, or if you're going to do it manually, make sure the balance is paid in full minus $1 by the statement date. Okay, so you got to keep at least $1 on there. Now, that dollar, I'm not saying you have to pay interest, but if you leave the dollar on there, or representative of 1% of the utilization rate, then what you can do is pay that off on the due date. So let's go back to the $1,000. 1% of $1,000, which is what FICO wants to see, 1 to 5%. So I would pay off my credit card in full minus 1%, and then I'd pay that off on the due date. It might seem like a lot of work here, but really it's not. You set up bill pay, to send a check or do a wire transfer, bank transfer of 1% every month on the due date. Okay, so you can look at your balance, you pull it up on your phone, you go, oh, I owe $1,000. I'm going to pay $990 today. Click, and then the bill pay automatically pays $10 on the due date.
Right,
and that prevents you from paying interest. That will then skyrocket your credit score, which then will prevent you or help you save money in the future, because you'll be paying less interest in the future on future cards.
My mind is blown right now. I've been doing it wrong my whole life.
Most people are.
Right? And I do use the strategy. I mean, I run every business expense through my credit card, and then travel for free, and I get a ton of perks and miles and all kinds of stuff, right? So it's good programs out there. And then in my head, what I do is, you know what? I pay it off, at the but I'm not doing the statement date. I do 7 days before the due date, so I still pay it off early, but I mean, it sounds like it's not doing anything.
You need to do it 15 days before the due date. Generally, the statement date is 14 days prior, so set it up for 15 days. That's the general rule of thumb, but look at your statements. But here's the other thing I want to say. If your credit score is above 740, then just keep doing what you're doing. If you're above 740 and 800s, then just keep doing what you're doing and just ignore what I just said. But most people aren't. Very, very few people. It's only about 3% of Americans are over 800. It's a very, very low number.
Wow.
And so we want to get you close to that 800. So when you do max out a credit card or you have an inquiry, it's not hurting you that much. If you have a 600 credit score and you're in that bad boy scorecard and you get one inquiry, you could drop 50 points. I'm in a very, very low risk scorecard. If I had 10 inquiries, I don't see a single drop in my scores at all because of the scorecard that I'm in. The other thing on credit cards, you have to use them every single month. I have a couple dozen credit cards and I use every single one of them every single month. And it's really not that big of a deal. And what I do is, do you have Netflix?
Yeah.
So take one of your credit cards that you're not using and put Netflix on it. You got car insurance, put that on an automatic payment. Electric bill, automatic payment with one of these credit cards. So all your normal bills, your utility bills, your Netflix, your car insurance, your garbage, your memberships or whatever, the stuff that you're paying anyway, put those on separate credit cards that you're not carrying with you. And then set up automatic payments to pay in full every single month on the due date. Now on the due date, because these are small cards, you're putting 30, 40 bucks on these cards. So the due date's fine. As long as they're not going over that 5% utilization. So if it's a $300 starter credit card and your electric bill is $100, obviously that's going to cause you issues. FICO doesn't care what your credit limit is. They care how much you're using of that credit limit.
That makes perfect sense. Sense. It's completely different than my theory, as far as handling credit cards and financials and all that stuff. And I did grow with the stigma, right? Credit card is debt is bad. But I mean, as entrepreneurs, we know that you got to have a credit sometimes to just, scale and grow and implement, do other stuff, reach for new opportunities. It's just part of the beast, right? um I don't think,
Look at Grant Cardone. I was the number one watched TV segment on Grant Cardone TV for years. And I spent a lot of time with Grant, and I spent time with Grant before he was worth all the money that he's worth. Think about Grant if you took Dave Ramsey's advice and paid cash for everything. Grant would be worth a few $1 million.
Yeah.
Instead of $100 million. And he's doing that all with credit. He's on the extreme side, but it's all based on credit.
Yeah.
I just bought a $48 million apartment complex. You think I paid cash for it? I hardly used any of my money. I syndicated most of it. So credit is king when it comes to becoming very wealthy.
Yeah. It's a tool, right? It's a powerful tool.
That's all it is tool.
Yeah. What happens? And I've fallen into this where I didn't see it as a tool. I saw it as an opportunity. Oh, go buy a new TV. Know what? Yeah, do this stupid thing with the starter credit card that I got like when I first started building my credit. And I mean, it depends on where you're coming from, I guess. But for me, that was the thing that wasn't normal, right? The awareness wasn't there that I could do something, about it, something bigger, and then look at the potential that it can bring as far as opportunities.
That's one of the things I say all the time is credit's a tool, not a trophy. And business clients, for example, we have a business credit course where I teach business owners how to get funding in their business name without personal guarantees, without financials, without tax returns. And one of the things they say to me is like, I don't want the personal guarantee. Like, it is a tool, not a trophy. You don't put your credit up on the mantle, and when your friends come over, you're like, oh, look at my big trophy. I got an 850 credit score. Oh, I can't have any dings. I got to polish it, right?
Yeah.
Think of a carpenter showing up to remodel your house, and he's got this brand new shiny hammer, and you're like, what's the deal with the hammer? Oh, I don't use a hammer. I don't ever touch that. Credit is a tool, not a trophy, and you need to use it, but you need to use it properly. And if you don't, it doesn't work. And then back to business credit. Everything I just said about credit cards, that has to do with personal credit.
Right.
On business credit, it's the absolute opposite. Complete opposite. You max out that credit card as many times as you possibly can. You go to the due date, and you get as many as you can possibly get, because it's business credit, it's calculated differently. Another thing that, if you want me to go on the personal credit, I can give you another pointer that people do wrong.
Yeah, please.
Car loans or installment loans. They want to pay off their cars early so they can avoid interest, which I agree. It's a great idea. You shouldn't be paying more than what you have to pay in interest. And so people will get car loans and pay them off early. You should never pay off an installment loan. So installment loan is a loan that has a set amount of installments. Car loans, boat loans, airplanes, motorcycles, student loans. Those are installment loans. Never pay them off early. Instead, pay them down quickly and leave a small balance on them. So for example, let's say you went out and bought a brand new Toyota Tundra, if you can get one. Let's say $70,000, and you got this 0% financing on it. Or let's say you have bad credit, you got 10% financing. You want to pay it off early because you don't want payments. Instead of paying it off, pay that down to like $100 or $50, and then pay $1 a month through bill pay, $1 a month for the remaining 5 or 6 years. Just set it up, $1 a month. What happens when you make those big payments? The bank will receive that payment and they apply that to next month's payment. So if, let's say your payment's $300 a month and you send a check for $1,200, they're going to take that extra $900 and apply it to the next 3 months. So the next month, when you look at your statement, it will say amount due 0,
right?
Due date July, because you're ahead of schedule.
Right.
So if you do that with your loans, it pays off, it then stops the growth of your credit. You then get punished by FICO, because the banks don't like it when you borrow money and pay it off early. So they have FICO limit or lower your credit score. So the hack is to pay it down, leave a small balance, pay $1 a month until the loan expires. This works every single time, as long as two things happen. Number one, you don't tell the bank what you're doing. You don't call and ask for permission because they're going to tell you no, because they don't want you to do that.
Yeah.
Number
And
two,
I'm making money. Yeah.
yeah. And number two is you can't do it if you're on automatic payments. So you got to cancel the ACH from the bank. You can set up automatic payments for your bill pay system, but you need to be in control of the payments, not the other way around. So some banks will give you, for example, I bought a Jeep last year and I could save 1% if I signed up for ACH. And I said no, because I essentially did the same thing where I paid it way down. I owe a little teeny tiny bit of money on it, and I pay a couple dollars a month instead of the normal $1,200, $1,300 a month. So that's something that most people do wrong. That will have a dramatic increase on your credit score, because every extra payment they report that to the bureaus. And so when FICO pulls it, you could have bought the car last month, made a huge payment this month, and it looks like you've made 5 years of payments, and really you made 1 or 2 payments. So that's another little hack you can do.
Wow, well, that's gold right there. I mean, it is. It truly is. It's difficult. It's confusing, right? It's complicated to start building a good credit history, and then just get that number up. I know because I remember, 10, 15 years ago when I launched my first business. Actually, before then, I was about 4 or 5 years into it, and my employees were they had a better shot at qualifying for a home loan than I did.
Yeah.
And I mean, that to me was just mind blowing. How is that possible? Like I own the business. I have, it's running, it's doing this. I have all the documentation, statements and everything. And as a business owner, I can't, I had to go through about 6 months, and I don't know if it was done right, honestly. The lender I had was kind of sketchy. So I had to go through about 6 months of just, payments and different things that I had to just tweak and move around my credit score or my credit history, so I could come in and then qualify as a business owner for that mortgage. Yeah. So
yeah, it's a pain. It's a pain. I just went through that in August, and some of this stuff is absolutely insane what they make you do. Like I knew I was moving, so I canceled the internet at the old house. I got a refund check because I had paid ahead and then I canceled it. So I got a refund check. I had to explain, I'd get my CPA involved to explain why I received a check from the internet company. Well, it's because I canceled it.
Yeah.
But the underwriter makes you do this. Another thing they made me do was, I have 3 children, 27 years old, 29 years old, and 31 years old. They made my CPA write a letter explaining why I don't pay child support on a 27, a 29, and 31-year-old kid, right?
Because they're grown individuals.
And that's what he wrote. He's like, Mr. Lambeth does not pay child support because they're grown children. They're 27, 29, 30.
Yeah. Yeah.
But these underwriters do all kind of crazy stuff when you're a business owner. So one of the things you want to do to make it easier is, if you are a business owner and you have personal loans that the business pays, which is totally fine, you need to make sure the business pays those loans, that the business does not reimburse you. So for example, my truck payment is paid by my business. I have never personally ever wrote a check for insurance, for maintenance, for the fuel, or the loan. Me personally, I've never wrote a check. The business pays 100%, and makes it super easy. Then when you go to buy, you just pull all the records and send it, and it shows right on your tax return that the company's paying it. And then they want to see canceled checks and stuff, which is pretty easy to show a couple years worth of history. But you always want to make sure the business is paying it versus the business reimbursing you. That's one mistake that I see people doing. Or they'll commingle. They'll have a business or a personal account and they're paying business expenses out of it, or vice versa, or they're using a credit card for both. That's one way to get huge fines from the IRS and open yourself up to liability if you ever get sued.
Wow. So Basically, what we're saying is do not commingle. If you have expenses that are being paid by the business, make sure they're coming out of the business account, and then just keep the record straight as opposed to commingling.
Yeah.
How would you? And I'm getting, I don't know if I'm getting in the weeds here, but how would you manage, for example? And I'll use my scenario because now I'm curious. If I have that, for example, that credit card where I run all the business expenses through, and I just want to get the miles and the benefits and all that stuff, how would you run that from I mean, because that one is to my name, it's not the business name, right? So if somebody has a credit card personal name, they're using it for business expenses. What's the best way to manage that?
Yeah. So with that, it can be, it's completely okay. And 85% of business owners do not know and do not have business credit.
Mm-hmm.
So 85% of the millions of people are running off of personal credit cards. Completely okay in the eyes of the IRS, as long as you don't commingle. So with that card, just make sure you never put personal expenses on that card, and make sure that you personally pay the credit card with your personal account. It's 100% separate. Now, if let's say that you have a credit card and you've been using it for personal, now you want to switch it to the business, that's okay too. But when you switch it, make sure from that point it's 100% business expenses on that card. Because here's what will happen. If you get audited and you have a couple transactions on there that are not business, the auditor is going to open up years worth of stuff, and they're going to assume you've been doing it on all of your credit cards. And now you look shady in the eyes of the IRS. And now there's doubt, versus if everything is separate, it's not going to pop up those can of worms, if you will, open up that can of worms. And they're just going to be like, oh, this is a personal credit card used for business, 100% business on there. And it's going to go a lot better in your audit.
Got it. Also, if you have multiple businesses, use an individual credit card for each one of the businesses, separate them.
Yeah.
Okay too?
Yep. So I own 5 different companies,
Mm-hmm.
and every single one of them has different credit. So I built business credit for those.
Mm-hmm.
But if you hadn't done that, you just take one of your personal credit cards, you do a resolution for your LLC or S Corp. I, Raphael, CEO, founder, blah, 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 blah. As of this day, sign Discover Cashback credit card to Raphael LLC, whatever. And then you sign and date it. And then you save that as your resolution. That's what gives you permission as a company to use your personal credit card.
Wow.
So you do that, and then you keep that card separate.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. That's I'm pretty much, I mean, I'm taking advantage of you. I feel like right now
right.
in terms of consultation,
That's what I'm here for.
But it's, those are very common questions. I feel, right. It's, again, as entrepreneurs, I think we go through the process of building a business plan and then doing this, doing that. But what happens after the fact? What happens after we get paid, after we make the business work? All right. We figure out employment, we figure out hiring processes and systems and contracts. And then the back end of it is just a mess. And for unless you have, that accounting experience or some background in there, but the numbers are really kept by us as business owners, not necessarily the CPAs. The CPAs will come in and then they'll do the numbers for the year and whatnot. But the real accounting and the responsibility of having clear cut, allocations for each of the, these things it really falls back on the ownership, right?
It's 100% the ownership. It's your responsibility. And, I meet with business owners every day. And one of the things is, well, my CPA says this, my CPA says this.
Yeah.
Is that it's not your CPA. Here's what people don't realize. The CPAs are licensed and registered to the IRS. CPAs are obligated by federal law to rat you out if you tell them, if they discover that you've made a mistake. It is the CPA's legal responsibility to turn you in. They work for the IRS. They do not work for you. They are there to file your taxes, not to plan your taxes. Now, there are some CPAs that will cross over as a tax professional. Most of them are tax preparers. Think about it in the eyes of like football. Imagine if Tom Brady's in the NFL or in the Super Bowl again, And he runs over to the rep and says, "Rep, what should I do to win this game?" That's your CPA. They are not there to tell you how to win. They are there to make sure you follow the rules. And if you do not follow the rules, they blow the whistle. And that's what CPAs do. And so I always counsel business owners that they need to get a tax professional. And generally, you want to what called an IRS enrolled agent. These are people that know way more about taxes than CPAs. When it comes to taxes, at the bottom of the barrel would be like your H&R Block employee. Right above that would be a CPA. They really don't know a lot about taxes. They know how to file, but they don't know how to save money. At the top of that would be your enrolled agents, because they're required to know certain things about taxes. They're required to a lot of continuing education on taxes, where a CPA is not. You know, a CPA can just do a bookkeeping class for their continuing education, where an enrolled agent has to take so many hours of just taxes. So I recommend you get a good tax attorney, you get a good enrolled agent, and then use your CPA as your bookkeeper. And don't talk to your CPA about what you're doing. Talk to your enrolled agent, because if you mess up, your enrolled agent is not legally required to tell the IRS anything. There's client attorney privileges essentially with the enrolled agent. So I learned this lesson because I got audited in 2012. And I had an enrolled agent, I had a CPA, and I had an attorney. And my attorney just said, "We're not telling you anything, and we're not providing anything." What happens usually when you get audited is they ask for a little tiny piece of paper or one little thing, and your CPA just gives them everything. Open it up.
Yeah.
So I got audited. I owned a real estate company. I had 26 real estate agents working for me, 100% commission. They paid a flat fee of $395. And I had tens of millions of dollars in commissions coming in and very little income. And the IRS agent could not figure out why I had such a small amount of income, because he didn't understand real estate agents are commission based.
Right.
I made $395 transaction, and he wanted all of these records. And the CPA's like, "Give it to him." Well, the attorney's like, "We are giving him the W-2s or the 1099s, and that's it."
And that's it.
So this went on for 18 months, and the IRS finally dropped the audit because they, went to another auditor, and he's like, "Dumbass, it's a real estate company." The commissions went to the real estate agent. Here's the 1099s proving.
That's how it works.
So that's what we do on the tax side of it. And we help people, like I said, business credit, personal credit, taxes, debt, investments. My courses are taught at San Diego State University, Forbes.com. I'm negotiating right now with Harvard and Stanford in their MBA program for my credit education courses. So, we can help you anywhere you want when it comes to finances.
Rondi, so where's the best place to find you? I mean, this is something that has to be addressed, right? Sooner rather than later, actually. As we're building, even if you're bootstrapping, you're in year one of the business, it's always way better to get just shit lined up right out of the gate, as opposed to coming back and having to fix it when it's all messed up. So if somebody wants to reach out and find out more about the classes, the trainings, and the education that you have available, where's the best place to reach you at?
I'm everywhere on social as Rondi Lambeth. So if you go to any social media platform, RONDI, you're going to find me. And then RondiLambeth.com is going to have all of our financial education and courses. Okay. So all of our courses are 100% tax deductible if you're a business owner. Ooh. And if you go through RondiLambeth.com, you're going to pay a fraction of what you would pay if you go to Forbes.com or one of the universities that teaches this. If you are trying to get your MBA, then you can take, the courses and get college credits for it. But otherwise, it's just RondiLambeth.com. I'm really, really easy to find. You go to Google and type in RONDI, you're going to find me.
You pop up.
I pop up.
So awesome. RondiLambeth.com. I'll make sure to have that on the show notes. Thank you so much, man. This is, it's really been eye-opening, and it's the myths of building, a good solid credit background. Or, I mean, there's just so many out there. There's so many different things that people talk about. Do this, do that. And I've been pushing, the 30% rule, because somehow in my head, I learned it years ago and it kind of made sense. Yep. But you see a stagnation. I'll speak for myself on this, right? I mean, your credit kind of jumps up a little bit and then it gets stagnant and you're there, like, have no idea. So I'm going to implement the stuff that you just talked about, like, right away. So yeah, thank you so much. I have one question that I love asking right before we close off, but it's if you were walking down the street and you ran into your 17-year-old self, what would you tell that young Rondi?
Get sooner.
Say that again.
Get started sooner. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in 2017, I had an attorney. It was either late 2017, early 2018 at an event, did a talk on taking chips off the table. And up until then, I did what most entrepreneurs do. You make $100,000, you take it out. The following month, the business needs $50,000, you loan it back to the business. The next month it needs 20, you loan it back. And I learned something in 2018 that I started taking 50% of the profit out of my company every single month, investing it elsewhere. So now I'm an investor in over a dozen different other companies. I have over 2,500 doors that if I wouldn't have done that and I just kept it in my company, because, you look at it, you can get a rate of return, let's say, like, for example, with my apartments, I pay my investors 18% interest, which is pretty high. I think the average is around 10. But You're looking at like 18%. I can make a lot more money investing back in my business. The problem is, what happens if the business goes out? Back in September, I fell from 192 feet while parachuting, free fell 30 feet, dislocated my foot from my leg, shattered my ankle, broke my leg in 17 places, laid in bed for 6 weeks, and spent 3 months in the cast and could not do anything. I had a concussion and then all the rest of it. Well, what happens if I had been paralyzed? What happens if I would have died? Or what happens if I lost, the government changes the rule on my business like they did last year and shut us down? I'm okay now because I'm taking money out. So I would say get started faster and start taking money out of your company every single month, taking chips off the table and reinvest in it in other places that you understand, not just throwing it out there up to the latest Doge or Shiv coin. But invest it in other businesses that you understand, not just leave it one thing.
I love that. Yeah. I wish I would have started with a profit first mentality a long time ago. Yeah. But it's one thing that I always talk about. It's, we're in the business to create opportunities, for people around us. Right. But we're in it. So we're first online.
Yeah. Why wouldn't that's my friend Michael Gerber, who wrote E-Myth, hates it when I say this. But Profit First, I think, is the #1 business book out there. And Michael just hates it when I say that because, both of the authors are named Michael. But Gerber hates it when I say that because he thinks E-Myth's better. And I used to say E-Myth is the greatest book, but now I think it's Profit First because why even build all the systems and build a great company if you're not making money?
Yeah.
Apply Profit First and start doing that. And then eventually, you're going to have some money.
Oh, yeah.
You'll wake up one day and go, holy crap, I got a couple $1 million invested in other businesses. I don't need this one now.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you opened yourself up for opportunity. If you're always struggling and don't allocate, and I keep saying allocation, but that's exactly where that's coming from, is that Profit First book, that Profit First mentality. Yeah. I love it, man. Yeah. Get started sooner. Rondi, thank you so much. I really appreciate you dropping your wealth of knowledge onto us here, and I mean, holding nothing back. It's truly a sign of somebody who's a giver, right? Especially with your background, being a fireman and then setting up foundations and you paying it forward to the world. It's amazing to see the the extent of your success thus far. So thank you so much. Once again, it's been a blast having you on the show, my friend.
Thanks for having me on.
Boom, it's a wrap.